After 17 long years, he's finally back in Korea, but this is no happy reunion. Because the only ones waiting for him are his parents' ashes. He greets them with a smile, but trust me, there's nothing but ice behind those eyes. He wonders about the value of life, a question he's about to answer for a lot of people. But that cold exterior shatters when we see the memory that started it all. 17 years ago. A night of thunder, a catastrophic event, and a boy lost at sea. He's screaming for his parents, completely alone in the middle of the unforgiving ocean. As if the universe itself was marking the moment his entire world was torn apart. The ship, his only hope, drifts away and his cries are swallowed by the storm. This is the moment a boy was left behind and a monster began to form. But he's not alone in the water, and what he sees next rips a final scream from his lungs. It's his mother and he's fighting through the storm just to reach her. He gets there only to watch her sink into the abyss, gone forever. His last hope is extinguished, leaving him utterly alone under a cruel, unforgiving sky. And just when you think it can't get any worse, a monster wave rises up to swallow him whole. Dragged into the deep, the last of his screams are silenced by the crushing pressure. But even as he's drowning, the fear in his eyes is replaced by a terrifying, cold resolve. He looks up towards the light and sees the true, horrifying scale of the catastrophe. He's not just in the ocean, he's in a mass grave, floating beside his own parents. And then there's this guy. Remember the name Secretary Kim because he's the key to this entire conspiracy. And Secretary Kim's handiwork is everywhere. The chef, the captain, the bodyguard. No one was spared. He's drowning in the truth long before he's drowning in the water. He screams for them, but the dead can't answer. Just as he's about to sink, a hand yanks him from the deep. But this is no stranger. It's his own grandfather, fighting the storm to save him. In this hellscape, there's no time for tears, only the desperate fight to stay alive. All the boy can do is cry out for the one family member he has left. And get this, his grandpa isn't just some old man, he's the chairman of the entire Cheon-gu Group. The chairman cuts through the boy's grief with a brutal truth. There's no going back for them. And then, with the storm as his witness, he prepares to pass on the secret that will define Taeha's entire life. Forget saving him. The chairman is here to give him a mission. Inherit the entire company, no matter what. He's handed a fountain pen, the one key that unlocks a single ally in a world of enemies. But his grandpa's final warning is cut short, leaving a terrifying, unfinished sentence hanging in the air. The kid is still a kid, begging to save his parents, completely unaware they were gone before they even hit the water. One look at the chairman and you know, he's not fighting the storm, he's just buying time. And that's when the horrifying realization dawns on Taeha's face. The truth hits him like a tidal wave. This wasn't an accident, it was an execution. In a final, brutal act of love, his grandfather shoves him away, making the ultimate sacrifice. He lets go, and Taeha's screams are the only thing left as his last family member sinks into the abyss. And now he's truly alone. A boy king with a sunken throne and an entire ocean of secrets. The storm breaks, and in the eerie calm that follows, Taeha just floats. He's lost everything. And now he's ready to let the ocean claim him too. But just as he's about to give up, something makes his eyes snap open. It's a cargo ship in the middle of nowhere, and it's not just passing by, it's coming right for him. And on that ship is a man who looks less like a savior and more like the devil himself. Pulled from the water, Taeha realizes he's just traded one hell for another. Yeah, these guys are no rescue team. They're wondering if their new catch is even worth keeping. They're not calling for a medic. They're calling for their boss, the capo. Our boy is a long way from home, and he's just realized he might be a prisoner of the Italian mob. And you better believe the capo is about to make his grand entrance. The capo is summoned, and you can tell from the sheer distance that this boss doesn't like to be kept waiting. And surprise, the big bad capo they're all afraid of, it's a she. Taeha's not just scared, he's profiling, and that neck tattoo tells him everything he needs to know. He clocks it instantly. These aren't sailors. They're part of something much more dangerous. Forget taking the stairs. The boss makes an entrance that literally defies gravity. She lands in front of him like a predator, and suddenly the ocean doesn't seem so bad. Her first question isn't, "Are you okay?" It's, "How did you get on my ship?" Her crew is useless, but the capo's got zero patience for language barriers when there's a mystery to solve. But just as they're about to write him off, the kid who's been silent this whole time finally opens his mouth. And get this, he speaks perfect Italian, dropping a bombshell that changes the entire game. The capo's smile widens. This kid isn't just a stray, he's a mystery she intends to solve. He lays it all out. The storm, the attack, the loss of his entire family. A sob story for the ages. But she's not buying it. Of all the ships in the ocean, he just happens to wash up on one belonging to the Salerno crime family? That name hits him like a punch to the gut. He knows exactly who these people are. They're laughing in his face because a Korean kid washing up in the Middle East speaking perfect Italian is a little too convenient, even for them. The laughter stops, and the steel comes out. They're done with the games and ready to get rid of him. She gives him one last chance. Give her a single reason why he's more valuable alive than dead. With a blade to his head, he remembers his grandfather's final gift, the one key that was supposed to save him. He pulls out the fountain pen, and just like that, the capo's entire demeanor shifts from predator to intrigued. And then he drops the ultimate trump card. He's not just some kid, he's the heir to the entire Cheon-gu Group. He's not begging for his life, he's making a business proposition, and he knows they can't refuse. The name drops, and suddenly the capo isn't looking at a lost boy, she's looking at a walking gold mine. Her crew can't believe it. The biggest company in Korea? This kid is supposed to be chaebol royalty? She's not taking any chances, immediately ordering her men to fact-check his story on the spot. But while they're scrambling for proof, she's already testing him, wondering just how many tricks this kid has up his sleeve. And he casually lists off 8 languages like he's ordering a pizza. Yeah, he calls that basic. Just then, her goon comes running back with the news, and you can see the panic on his face. It's all true. The Cheon-gu Group's heir is officially missing, and he's standing right in front of them. And that's when the capo gets a look on her face that says, this just went from a problem to the most interesting day of her life. The power dynamic has completely flipped, and now Taeha is the one giving the orders. He's not just calling for help, he's activating the one failsafe his grandfather left him. But his first order isn't to call his family, it's to call the one man who can't be bought. Half a world away in Seoul, the phone rings in the dead of night, and on the other end is lawyer Kim In-soo, the man who holds the keys to the kingdom. The capo lays out the situation, acting as Taeha's mouthpiece to test this supposed ally. She's not asking for a ransom, she's making a threat. We have your boy. What's he worth to you? But the lawyer doesn't even flinch, he just takes a sip and asks for their price. The capo throws out a number that would make a king sweat, $10 million cash 24 hours. And the lawyer's response? He basically tells one of the most dangerous women alive that he's too busy for this. Then he counters with a number so insulting, it's not a negotiation, it's a slap in the face. The lawyer's counteroffer isn't to save the boy, it's $1 million bounty on his head. He's not just putting a price on Taeha's life, he's putting a 5-minute timer on it. But the capo calls his bluff, and for a second the lawyer's bravado cracks, worried she won't trust a traitor to pay up. Back on the ship, Taeha is staring down 2 barrels while the lawyer on the phone promises a one-click payment for his life. And then comes the blackmail. Either they deal with the kid, or the entire Salerno family gets framed for the massacre. The call ends, and the so-called ally is already celebrating, telling his real boss that the job is as good as done. And we finally see who he's talking to, the shadowy figure who's about to inherit everything over Taeha's dead body. But they made one fatal mistake. They left the phone on speaker, and Taeha heard every single word. That look in his eyes isn't fear anymore. It's the cold, hard math of betrayal clicking into place. And just like that, the terrified boy is gone, replaced by a chilling calm as he finally understands the game he's been forced to play. The capo hangs up, and just like that, Taeha's life insurance policy has expired. He pleads for his life, but she reminds him he's officially been downgraded from asset to loose end. She paints a grim picture. While he's fighting for his life here, his family is already picking out his casket back home. And then she connects the dots for him. This isn't just a betrayal, it's a hostile takeover, Mafia style. The final, horrifying truth sinks in. The people who ordered his death weren't strangers, they share his blood. But get this, the capo is just toying with him, because breaking a chaebol heir is her new favorite hobby. He survived the ocean and a massacre, only to realize his story might end here, as a joke for a bored crime boss. He clutches the pen, his only inheritance, and finally understands the kind of power that gets your whole family erased. But just as she's about to make her final move, the party gets crashed, hard. It's not just an attack, it's an army, and it looks like the lawyer's 5-minute timer is up. The lawyer wasn't bluffing, an entire fleet is on their doorstep and they're not here to talk. For the first time, The untouchable capo looks rattled, wondering who in their right mind would declare war on her. But while she's panicking, Taeha is looking at her with an expression that says, "I've been waiting for this." She thinks it's a rescue mission, a smirk crossing her face as she underestimates just how disposable this kid really is. And then Taeha does the unthinkable, carving a declaration into his own hand with his grandfather's pen. The entire crew freezes because the most dangerous person on this ship is suddenly the unarmed 10-year-old. He tells her flat out, "They won't pay you, so killing me is just bad business." He's not asking for mercy anymore. He's offering her an alliance, a weapon she never knew she needed. He swears an oath of loyalty, trading his old life for a single chance at revenge. And that mark on his hand? It's the Salerno family crest. He's not just asking to join, he's already branded himself as one of them. And the capo's response to this kid's insane death wish? Uncontrollable laughter. She's not calling for a retreat, she's calling for a festival, and you know that means things are about to get messy. But the laughter stops and she gives him one last out. "Kid, you can take responsibility for your words, right?" She sees the monster he's willing to become, asking if he's ready to get his hands dirty for the power he craves. And his answer is his grandfather's dying command, a promise that's now soaked in blood. With a single determined nod, the deal is sealed. He's just sold his soul for a shot at vengeance. She dismisses the entire enemy fleet with a smirk, calling them all bark and no bite. This isn't a war, it's a game. And just like that, class is in session. His first lesson in being a mobster starts right now. She lays down the new terms and conditions. From now on, he will live and die for the Salerno family. And she tells him to watch closely, because he's about to get a front row seat to what Salerno power really looks like. She's not just giving him a new family, she's showing him the bloody blueprint for the man he's about to become. Fast forward 17 years, and the boy who was lost at sea is back, looking like he owns the entire world. He's visiting his parents' memorial, a ghost paying respects to ghosts because for 17 years, the world believed he was dead. But he's not here to mourn, he's here to make a promise. His revenge is just getting started. And speaking of revenge, the first piece on the board is already in motion. An ambush turns a corporate building into a shooting gallery, but the target is way too slick. This isn't just a random attack, it's a professional hit squad sent to clean up a loose end. But the man calling the shots is less than impressed with his team's performance. Meet Cheon-gu's head of security, and he's scrambling to find his missing executive director. He swears that whoever kidnapped the director is a dead man walking, having no idea who he's really up against. The security team finally tracks down the director's car, thinking they've got him cornered. But a last-second warning tells them their target is far from helpless. And that's when their entire plan goes up in smoke, literally. They didn't find their target, they walked right into a perfectly laid trap. Before they can even react, the entire hit squad gets permanently decommissioned. Because the kidnapped director they were sent to rescue is actually the one doing the hunting. The head of security is the last man standing, staring down the monster he was supposed to protect. He thinks his bulletproof vest saved him, but all it did was buy him a few more seconds of terror. One of Taeha's own men calls out the enemy's tactics, but he's about to get a lesson in hierarchy, and Taeha shuts him down cold because in this game, only the boss gets to make the rules. He moves like a blur, proving that a bulletproof vest means nothing when you're this outclassed. And with one clean strike, the head of security is permanently retired. The last thing to go through his mind is a single unanswered question. He's dying, and he still doesn't understand how a simple rescue mission turned into his own execution. His final thought isn't about his company, it's about the identity of the monster who just erased him. Taeha looks down, not with malice, but with the quiet satisfaction of a predator claiming his first kill back on home turf. He walks away from the chaos without a second glance because this was just step one. He slips into a getaway car like he's just leaving the office after a long day. But he's not leaving empty-handed, he's taking a little souvenir for the man who sent them. The first message has been sent, and now it's time to deliver it in person. And that souvenir? It's the lawyer who put a price on his head, now begging for a discount. Meet Kim In-soo, the traitor who sold him out for a promotion, now trying to blame his new bosses. But Taeha isn't here for excuses. He's here to settle a 17-year-old debt. And he's brought a little something to jog the lawyer's memory, the exact price of his life. He drops the number like a death sentence, $1 million, the cost of a boy's soul. He calls him out on the undelivered payment, and suddenly the lawyer's memory gets a little foggy. But we all remember the phone call that sealed a 10-year-old's fate. Taeha pulls out a lighter, ready to close this chapter with a little bit of fire. He tells the lawyer the kid he tried to have killed is already long gone. And the man standing here today was forged in the fires of that betrayal. He's not just burning the money, he's turning the lawyer's greed into his own personal bonfire. The monster they created doesn't even flinch, because this is just the first receipt he's come to collect. He lights his cigarette on the wreckage, a quiet moment before he burns down their entire world. This isn't just business, it's a promise to the ghosts who made him. He apologizes to his family, not for the monster he's become, but for taking 17 years to start his war. He tells them to rest easy, because from now on he'll be taking care of all the dirty work. He's not just shouldering their legacy, he's shouldering the burden of their revenge. The first name is crossed off the list and he's already moving on to the next because revenge doesn't take holidays. He waltzes right into the next snake's nest, and they're not exactly rolling out the welcome mat. But they brought guns to a knife fight, and he's about to give them a very permanent lesson in corporate restructuring. He just redecorated the office, and let's just say the new color scheme is brutal efficiency. And the last man standing is about to find out he's the final item on tonight's agenda. He's asking the million-dollar question, completely unaware he's talking to the guy who signs the checks. He tries to threaten Taeha with the company name, not realizing he's threatening the landlord with his own house. But Taeha's already done his homework, casually listing off the company's entire corporate structure while cleaning his blade. The guy's face drops as Taeha recites their official job description, but that's just the appetizer. Because now he's getting to the main course, all the off-the-books work Cheon-gu uses them for. And he opens a door to reveal this company's dirty little secret, the people they were paid to erase. They were about to be silenced forever, only to be rescued by an even bigger predator. But he's not cutting them loose, he's giving one of them a knife and a very, very dangerous choice. He's not here to be a hero, he's erasing witnesses and he just gave them their walking papers. But as they flee, one of them doesn't look at the exit. He's looking at the man who just rewrote his fate. And with the room cleared, it's time for a very private performance review with the office manager. The guy is screaming at his lost leverage, completely oblivious to the fact that his own life is the only thing on the table now. And you better remember this face, because that kid isn't looking back in gratitude, he's looking back with purpose. The manager is still asking the wrong questions, thinking this is about family ties. But Taeha clarifies, he didn't save them, he just needed them out of the way for his real objective. Mask off, game on. He demands the schedule for every single Cheon-gu executive. The guy starts screaming about how talking will get him and his entire family wiped off the map. So Taeha gives him a simple choice, a potential problem with his bosses later, or a very certain problem with him right now. The manager sings like a canary, giving Taeha the full layout of the rot at the heart of his family's company. And now he's back on the streets, a ghost in a bespoke suit trying to remember how to blend in. The city moves on, completely oblivious to the one-man earthquake that's about to tear it apart. He's home, but that look in his eyes isn't nostalgia, it's the cold calculation of a predator. He sees his family's name everywhere, plastered on ads that promise a better life while bleeding the country dry. And we get a quick history lesson. The last man who tried to fight this system was the president of Korea himself. He declared an all-out war on organized crime, the bravest and last speech he would ever make. Because that war on crime ended before it even started, with the president being permanently silenced. After that, the government just cut a deal with the devil and the country officially went up for sale. And into this broken system walks Taeha, the one man who has the power to either save it or burn it to the ground. Cheon-gu didn't just buy the country, they bought the news, turning politics into a sideshow while they ran the whole circus. The propaganda machine is so effective, they could run a puppy for president and people would still cheer. And in the shadow of their glass towers, the people they bleed dry still believe Cheon-gu is on their side. But Taeha's not here for a history lesson. He's making a pit stop on his way to burn it all down. And just like that, he runs into his first obstacle, another customer who wants the exact same thing. You can feel the temperature drop as two predators size each other up over a pack of smokes. The other guy points to the prize, completely oblivious to the fact he's challenging a man with nothing left to lose. But Taeha doesn't even blink. This isn't a negotiation, it's a test of will. And of course, there's only one pack left, turning a convenience store run into a high-stakes standoff. But the stranger backs down, telling the clerk to give it to Taeha, a simple act of kindness, Or does he recognize the danger standing next to him? Taeha pays for his prize, but the guy he just stared down isn't leaving just yet. Just when he thinks it's over, the stranger follows him outside, and you know this isn't about cigarettes anymore. The guy asks to borrow just one, and suddenly this quiet street corner feels like a negotiation table. Taeha hits him with a sarcastic comeback, but the stranger's smile doesn't even waver. And then the guy drops a line that's a little too close to home. He's also just back in Korea after a long time. He asks Taeha if he even remembers the taste, and this is officially the least random encounter in history. Then he just walks away with a friendly warning, leaving Taeha with more questions than answers. But Taeha isn't confused, he's calculating, because his instincts are screaming at him. After 17 years in the game, he can read a man's power level just by looking at him. And his verdict? This guy isn't just strong, he's on par with the monsters Taeha fought to survive overseas. Taeha hopes he never sees that guy again, but you just know the universe has a twisted sense of humor. And speak of the devil, our mystery man is just finishing up his own bit of corporate restructuring. Meet Kang Minu, a man who looks at a room full of chaos and just sees a good place for a smoke break. He's not just a cleaner, he's an artist, and this is his latest masterpiece of mayhem. His professional assessment of the scene? The handiwork is sloppy, not up to his usual standards. He puts out his cigarette with a level of disrespect that tells you everything you need to know about him. And just like that, he's on the phone, casually reporting the job's done like he just took out the trash. But his boss is calling with a new problem, and Kang Minu does not like being bothered on his day off. He tells his boss to cancel their plans because a much bigger problem just landed on their doorstep. Because the man who just took out their lawyer? Yeah, he's got his sights set on the real boss now. And the boss finally gets the news, but that what isn't fear. It's the sound of his perfect little empire starting to crack. His top cleaner reports in, their entire security force was taken down by a single man with a single blade. And it gets worse. This ghost didn't just take out their lawyer, he knows exactly where the family holds its most secret meetings. But the boss just scoffs, dismissing the breach as if someone just crashed a holiday dinner instead of declaring war. He's so arrogant, he can't believe some nobody could possibly uncover a tradition only their family knows. So he gives his number one dog a simple order. Find this phantom and make sure no one knows you're looking. And that's when it clicks for Kang Minu, the single word that connects all the dots. He flashes back to that standoff at the convenience store, realizing the man he met was no random stranger. Every weird question, every strange look, it's all coming together in one terrifying realization. Because he saw the scar on Taeha's palm, and he knows a mark like that can only belong to a fellow master of the blade. He's asking if there's a blade master in the family, completely unaware he's talking about the one they left for dead. The boss scoffs, saying his relatives are useless. A statement that's about to be proven very, very true. He tries to buy his top dog's loyalty with 100 million, but you can practically hear the panic in his voice. Even the legendary Kang Minu looks at this aftermath and knows he's going to need a bigger security detail. The boss hangs up, annoyed that he has to deal with this mess on the night of the big family gathering. He dismisses his best cleaner as a mere gangster, a mistake that's going to cost him everything. But a sudden chill runs down his spine because he's realizing he's not alone in this hallway. He walks in to find the entire board meeting has been permanently adjourned, and he's the last one on the agenda. And get this, Kang Minu isn't working for the boss. He's reporting to the president, playing both sides of the board. But the president just laughs it off, thinking his man is drunk, completely oblivious to the war that's already started. Kang Minu is complaining about turning down 100 million, because apparently his day just got a lot more expensive. He's on the phone warning his boss about a dangerous person, completely oblivious to the fact that his target has already left the building. He hangs up, confident he's got this handled, but he's about to learn a very hard lesson in humility. Because Taeha's right behind him, asking if he followed him all this way just to bum another smoke. Taeha lays it out. Their meeting wasn't a coincidence, and he knew he was being tailed from the second they met. And for the first time, the legendary Kang Minu is laughing at himself because he just got outplayed by the very man he was hired to find. The smile fades, and he admits that in his entire career, Taeha is the only person who's ever seen him coming. The air gets thick as the two apex predators finally square up, ready to see who's really at the top of the food chain. Kang Minu asks the one question on everyone's mind. Who are you? But Taeha just wags his finger, telling him he wasn't being hunted. He was being helped, and that's somehow even more terrifying. Kang Minu finally gets it. He wasn't the hunter. He was the test subject, and now class is officially over. The pleasantries are done, and now Korea's two top dogs are about to see who's really got the bigger bite. Forget a fight. This is a hurricane of steel and fury, and the entire alley is their personal playground. They're not just fighting. They're rewriting the laws of physics with every single strike. This isn't a back alley brawl. It's a masterclass in mayhem, and neither one is willing to give an inch. And just like that, Kang Minu's signature weapon gets turned into a set of very expensive toothpicks. He's staring at the pieces, trying to process how someone could be that fast, that precise, that impossible. And then poof, Taeha vanishes into thin air, leaving Kang Minu alone with his shattered pride. But that cold sweat on his neck tells him he's not alone. He just made the classic mistake of looking down instead of up. Because Taeha's not running away, he's just getting a better angle for the final exam. And Taeha's eyes lock on, because the hunter just became the final boss. Kang Minu hits the deck, realizing Cheon-gu isn't just unlucky, they're officially on an endangered species list. He's looking up at a ghost, wondering how his family managed to piss off not one, but two apex predators. The blade stops just short of his throat because this isn't an execution. It's a final grade, and he just failed. He's not just beaten. His entire reputation as Korea's top dog just got permanently revoked. But Taeha doesn't deliver the final blow. He just turns his back, which is somehow even more insulting. He leaves the legend lying in the dirt because he's got bigger fish to fry and a schedule to keep. Kang Minu can't wrap his head around it. Why go through all this trouble just to walk away? Taeha doesn't even bother to answer, leaving the country's most dangerous man with nothing but questions. But Kang Minu isn't begging for his life. He's making a promise. This isn't over, it's just intermission. He hits him with the ultimate power move. If you worked for Cheon-gu, you'd already be a memory. And then he lays down the law. Help my family again and there won't be a next time. He calls it payback for the cigarette, which is the most gangster way of saying, I own you now. Kang Minu can't even process it. His life was just valued at the price of a single smoke. And the last word on his lips isn't fear, it's humiliation. So cheap. Taeha just melts back into the night, leaving Korea's top dog with a shattered ego and a new boss. But as he drives away, that cold exterior finally cracks, just for a second. The fight wasn't as one-sided as it looked, and he's paying the price in blood. He checks the damage and just shrugs it off like a paper cut, but that's a wound that would put a normal man in the hospital. Because for Taeha, pain is just a reminder that he's still got a war to win. The clock is ticking, and he's got exactly 32 minutes to settle a 17-year-old score. Because this isn't just a drive, it's the final countdown to the revenge he's bled for. But even a monster has nightmares, and his are playing on a loop. He's back on that ship with his mother's hands trying to shield him from a truth too ugly to see. But you can't unsee your entire world being torn apart right in front of you. His father, standing between his family and the men who came to erase them. And with his last breath, he gives his final order. Save the boy, no matter the cost. His mother tries to drag him to safety, but how do you run when your heart is being left behind? And then comes the sound that shatters a young boy's soul forever. Because the men who took his father are done playing games and now they're coming for him. He screams for his mom, but the woman who turns around is a stranger wearing her face, armed and terrified. Her final order isn't to fight, it's to jump, because the storm is a better bet than staying on this ship. And with a smile that shatters his entire world, she makes him promise to survive, knowing she won't. The man in charge is just annoyed, complaining that he wanted the entire family erased and the ship sunk ages ago. But the real horror sinks in when he hears them speak. This wasn't a random attack, it was an inside job. The cleanup crew raises their weapon, ready to turn the last two survivors into a memory. With her last breath, she screams at him to run, a final act of love in a world of hate. He's pushed into the abyss, his cries lost to the storm as he's separated from her forever. The family yacht, once a symbol of their empire, is now just a ghost ship waiting for its final curtain call. And just like that, his entire world is erased in a single fiery explosion. The past sinks, but the monsters who created it are still living it up. And speaking of monsters, welcome to the family reunion from hell. Meet the eldest daughter, who's less concerned about a man's death and more annoyed she didn't order it herself. And here's the second son, already gossiping about the victim's private life like it's a tabloid headline. Of course, this family dinner is just an excuse to throw shade and sharpen their knives on each other. Then you've got the fourth son, who cuts right through the drama to ask the only question that matters. Who gets the dead guy's money? But the bickering stops when the real boss of this snake pit finally makes his presence known. This isn't just dinner. It's a secret meeting of the sharks who run Cheon-gu. And at the head is Jin Guho, the man who inherited the throne, asking for a status report on the mess Taeha just made. And look who answers. It's his son, the very man who hired the cleaner, reporting back with a smile that says problem solved. He proudly reports that he's already taken care of the witnesses, tying up all the loose ends. He even brags about handling the police, completely confident that he's got the situation under control. But his father's response isn't a thank you. It's a brutal reminder of who's really in charge. Because his son didn't just clean up a mess, he just accidentally kicked a hornet's nest called the Oseong faction. And for the first time, that smug smile is wiped clean off his face. He tries to save face by name-dropping a rival gangster, but he's just digging his own grave deeper. And his father is more than happy to give him a second lesson in corporate discipline. He spells it out. You don't know who the killer is, you can't find him, and you just started a war with our rivals. Then he hits him with the ultimate insult. If Taeha's grandfather was still alive, you wouldn't even be allowed in this room. But even after all that, he just smiles and promises to deliver the Phantom's head in 12 hours, setting a brand new clock ticking. The aunt just rolls her eyes because for this family, public humiliation is just another Tuesday. The uncle hints that the boss isn't just being harsh. He's terrified of his own son. He drops the real reason. It's not hatred, it's fear. And speaking of fear, the son is back from his little mess, looking like he's ready for round 2. He's not waiting for orders. He's setting his own trap for the ghost that's haunting them. His team is ready, but you get the feeling they have no idea what they're about to walk into. This guy isn't nervous, he's practically vibrating with excitement at the thought of the coming chaos. But while they're setting a trap, Taeha is driving right to them, because he's been studying their every move. For 17 years, he's been preparing for this night, backed by the full power of the Salerno family. He knows exactly who he's up against. The uncle who seized power before his grandfather's body was even cold. He didn't just climb the ladder, he built a new one on the bones of his enemies. And they've been hiding in the same secret bunker ever since. A tradition he's about to crash. And that's the one mistake they made. Thinking the rules they broke to get power would ever protect them. He's bleeding for a system his uncle stole, all for a seat at a table that was never his. They didn't just take his company, they took his entire world, and now he's here to collect. Meanwhile, at the family fortress, the security team spots an uninvited guest on the cameras. The manager confirms the guest list is closed, completely unaware that the main event is about to arrive. But this guest isn't waiting for an invitation. He's making a new entrance right through the front door. The manager scrambles, ordering them to raise the barricades, but you can't stop a hurricane with a speed bump. Because he's not here to play games. He's here to deliver a message to the cowards who've been living on borrowed time. He's not here to strategize. He's here to remind them that some debts can only be paid in person. The barricades go up, but all they did was give him something to crash his brand new welcome wagon into. This isn't just an attack, it's a message, delivered at 200 kilometers an hour. The security team looks up, and the last thing they see is the shadow of the ghost they thought was long gone. They were supposed to be the best, but they didn't even last long enough to draw their weapons. He stands over the wreckage of their defenses and announces to the world, "I've returned." Inside, the family dinner is interrupted, but they're more annoyed by the noise than worried about the cause. They finally realize the chaos is coming from the front gate, completely oblivious to the fact that the gate is already gone. But the son just smiles because he's been waiting for this guest to finally arrive. The boss orders his son to check it out, still thinking this is just some low-level thug crashing their party. But the son just smirks, telling his dad there's no need to check because the guest has already arrived. And just like that, the family's own security detail surrounds them. This isn't a party anymore, it's a coup. The aunt is panicking, suddenly realizing that all their power means nothing when you're on the wrong end of the payroll. The uncle is still trying to pull rank, completely oblivious to the fact that his authority has just been permanently revoked. Because this isn't a negotiation. It's a hostile takeover, and the entire board of directors is being forcibly retired. The boss looks at his son, the one he just humiliated, and the horrifying truth finally starts to click into place. And the son's smile says it all. "You should have known this was coming, Dad." He calls his father out, not for hating him, but for being terrified that he'd end up just like the grandfather he betrayed. And then comes the confession that rewrites history. He was the one who took out his grandfather and Taeha's father all those years ago. But this family implosion isn't a surprise to Taeha. It's the first domino in a revenge plot 17 years in the making. Outside, the security team thinks they've cornered one man, not realizing the apocalypse just rang their doorbell. The boss is screaming at his son, but he's about to learn that crazy is the new corporate ladder. He's not just aiming a gun at his family. He's bought out every single bodyguard in the room. And the son plays dumb, acting like he didn't just orchestrate the most hostile takeover in family history. The rest of the family is still trying to give orders, completely failing to realize they've just been fired. The aunt turns to her personal guard for help, about to get a crash course in what loyalty is really worth. And her bodyguard's response is a polite, sorry, not sorry. He's already accepted a better offer. The next guard is even more blunt. Betrayal just pays better and business is business. And the last one just complains about the low wages, basically telling them they got what they paid for. Because every single guard in this room now answers to one person, the new king of this snake pit. The chairman looks at his most trusted man, unable to believe that even his personal shadow would turn on him. He's still trying to process a betrayal so deep it's rewriting his entire world. And the man who steps out of the shadows is his most loyal guard, the one person he thought was untouchable. But here's the twist. His loyalty was never to the man, it was to the company, and he was Taeha's grandfather's right-hand man. One of the uncles is still screaming about promotions, completely missing the fact that this isn't a board meeting, it's a liquidation. And he gets a very permanent performance review delivered right to his temple. The son doesn't even flinch, casually erasing a branch of the family tree with a pop of his bubble gum. The remaining relatives finally realize their money can't buy them out of this particular hostile takeover. And just like that, the entire board of directors is permanently dissolved in a symphony of chaos. The new king and his second-in-command survey their kingdom, built on the ashes of their own family. The chairman looks at his son not with shock, but with the tired resignation of a man who knew this day was always coming. And he drops a bombshell. He's suspected his own son ever since his brother died of a sudden, convenient illness. He screams that he kept his son at a distance because he always knew what kind of monster he was raising. But the son just laughs, reminding his father that he's the one who wrote the playbook on family betrayal. He puts the gun to his father's head, asking who really orchestrated the accident that wiped out Taeha's family 17 years ago. The chairman finally cracks, admitting he did it all for power because he refused to be left with nothing. But the son's real question is a whisper full of venom. Then why didn't you ever give that power to me? And that's the question that finally breaks him. The fear he's been hiding for decades finally bubbling to the surface. He confesses the truth. He knew the moment he named his son's successor, he'd be signing his own death warrant. The son just smiles and says, "That's true," before adding that hearing it out loud has really put him in a bad mood. The chairman plays his last card, spitting that even in death, the company bylaws will be his final revenge. But his son just laughs it off, casually telling him, "Oh, I know. He's not an amateur. He knows a coup won't get him the crown, and he's already planned for the loophole." But his right-hand man drops the real problem with this whole hostile takeover. The army crashing the gates? Yeah, they're not on the payroll, and suddenly the chairman's blood runs cold. Because the son isn't the new king, he's just the opening act for the true heir, and with one last pop, he permanently retires his father from the board. And speaking of the heir, his welcome party is in full swing at the front gate. But Taeha isn't knocking. He's a phantom of pure vengeance, turning their elite security into a footnote. They think they have him cornered, screaming that he doesn't even have a gun. Too bad for them. These aren't just guards. They're the best Cheon-gu has, and they're about to learn what happens when you bring a gun to a god-tier knife fight. The head of security sizes him up, thinking this will just be another day at the office. But Taeha makes the first move, and it's not the one they were expecting. He's not just fighting them, he's welcoming the challenge with a look that says, "This is going to be fun." He turns their greatest strength, their numbers, into his personal playground. And just like that, their perfect formation turns into a circular firing squad. He's not just dodging their attacks, he's making them take each other out of the fight. This isn't a battle, it's a ballet of blades, and he's the only one left dancing. Inside, the new management finally realizes the party crasher is a one-man army and starts to panic. Taeha's not just using a knife, he's weaponizing the very fortress they thought would protect them. And he sends the first piece of their broken defenses flying back as a warning shot. The new head of security is already yelling at his team, wondering why they can't handle one little gate crasher. Meet the three stooges of Cheon-gu's security, already fighting over promotions while their entire department gets dismantled. But while they're arguing about job titles, Taeha is busy giving their men a very permanent early retirement. One of them decides to handle it personally, but his partner is more concerned with office politics than the one-man army at the door. But even a monster can bleed, and for the first time we see a crack in his perfect armor. Because that friendly chat with Kang Minu left a parting gift, and the bill is coming due at the worst possible time. And his enemies are more than happy to take advantage of that one moment of weakness. The security head goes all in, thinking he's finally landed a hit on the ghost. But Taeha just uses the attack to reposition, because this isn't a fight, it's a chess match, and he's 5 moves ahead. That's not the look of a man who's cornered. That's the look of a predator who just finished playing with his food. The head of security makes his move, completely unaware he's just a warm-up act. His partner is still complaining about the noise, as if a one-man apocalypse is just a minor inconvenience. But Taeha just smiles, because the time for conserving energy is officially over. The guy throws a haymaker at thin air because his target is already 3 steps ahead and moving on. And the look on their faces says it all. They're not fighting a man, they're fighting a ghost. He doesn't just dodge, he disarms them with a flick of the wrist, turning their own weapons against them. The other security head finally realizes this isn't a gate crasher, it's an extinction-level event. This guy is still trying to figure out where Taeha went, not realizing the blade is already at his knee. And with one fluid motion, the first of the 3 stooges is permanently removed from the payroll. He doesn't even look back because the appetizers are done, and he's walking straight to the main course. He looks down at the aftermath, but something's not right. This isn't his handiwork. He finishes the cleanup crew outside, but the silence from the main house is deafening. He's ready for the final boss fight, but he's worried the cowards have already run for the hills. But when he opens the door, he finds out someone else already threw the party without him. The new king of the castle welcomes him in, acting like he just saved Taeha a whole lot of work. And for the first time, the monster is speechless, his entire revenge, stolen right from under his nose. The greedy 4th son permanently cashed out. The scheming aunt who just had her last family gossip session. The gossiping uncle who finally has nothing left to say. And his main target, Chairman Jin Guho, already crossed off the list by someone else's hand. The new king of the castle is trying to act casual, complimenting Taeha's skincare routine like they're old friends. He drops his name like they're at a high school reunion, completely ignoring the carnage he just caused. And Taeha finally puts a face to the name, his own cousin, the one who just stole his revenge. The new boss is already pulling rank, offended that Taeha didn't use the proper honorifics while standing over his father's body. He claims he waited around just to explain things, as if this whole family massacre was a welcome gift. He invites Taeha to stick around for the story, but Taeha is not taking a seat at this particular board meeting. And then he drops the bombshell. He knows all about Taeha's little trip to Italy 17 years ago. But his right-hand woman interrupts the history lesson because their getaway helicopter is waiting. She's practically begging him to run because she knows they're in a room with a man who just dismantled an army. But the new king is annoyed, telling his own escape pilot to wait because he's not done monologuing. Taeha stands over the carnage, his entire revenge plot hijacked, but his cousin isn't done talking. But the assistant's eyes go wide. She recognizes a voice from a nightmare 17 years ago. And in that one moment, Taeha's blood runs cold as he remembers the man who gave the final order on that ship. We flash back to the night his world ended, with the cleanup crew getting impatient with the slow pace of the job. And the man in charge gives the order to sink the ship, but only after he's personally erased every last witness. The pieces finally click into place, and Taeha realizes his cousin wasn't just a greedy snake, he was the monster holding the weapon. His cousin turns away, but the swagger is gone, replaced by the cold shadow of a man who knows he's been caught. But he recovers with a sickening smile, pretending to be flustered by the accusation. He tries to pull rank, threatening Taeha for not showing respect, as if they're not standing in a room full of his victims. But Taeha just dares him to try, because his 17-year-old promise just found its final true target. The guy who just wiped out his own family is lecturing Taeha on proper etiquette. But Taeha's not listening. He's connecting the dots in a 17-year-old conspiracy. He realizes his cousin didn't just know he was alive. He knew about Italy, the training, everything. But that raises the million-dollar question. Why stage this coup on the one day he knew Taeha would be back? His cousin gets tired of waiting for an answer and decides it's time to start the main event. And then it clicks. This wasn't a stolen revenge, it was a setup from the very beginning. His cousin needs a villain to save the company from, and Taeha just walked in to audition for the part. And the old family guard steps up, dripping with sarcasm, to welcome the old master home. He fires a shot not to kill, but to announce that the final act of this tragedy has officially begun. But he forgot who he's dealing with, a man who can parry a bullet with a blade and not even break a sweat. He doesn't just block the shot, he catches it on the blade like it's a game of catch. The cousin is spraying and praying, but Taeha's already dancing through the storm, turning the hallway into his personal shooting gallery. And the old guard isn't just a glorified butler, he's got moves that could shatter bone, and he's aiming right for Taeha's head. And in that split second, another piece of the puzzle clicks into place. This guard wasn't just loyal to his grandfather, he was on the ship that night. He introduces himself with the politeness of a business meeting, right after trying to take Taeha's head off. But Taeha's not here for introductions. He's here to collect a 17-year-old debt, and this guy just moved to the top of the list. The cousin keeps firing, but he might as well be shooting at a ghost because Taeha is already gone. And his cousin is actually enjoying this, complimenting his speed like they're at a track meet instead of a fight to the death. But the old guard is a whole different class of problem, landing a hit that sends Taeha flying and proves this is a 2-on-1 fight. And for the first time tonight, the monster is on the ground, looking up at the man who's about to end his revenge before it even truly begins. The old guard taunts him, asking if yoga is the secret to his impossible speed. But Taeha responds with a flurry of his own, proving that two can play at this deadly game. And he realizes this isn't just some bodyguard, this is Cheon-gu's core strength, a different breed of monster. But that's when the bill comes due. The wound from Kang Minu is slowing him down at the worst possible moment. Even injured, he sees an opening. His cousin is getting cocky and the head of security is nowhere in sight. He does a quick head count and realizes something is wrong. 4 relatives at the meeting, but only 3 bodyguards accounted for. The old guard doesn't give him time to think, closing the distance with a move meant to end the fight for good. And just when you think it can't get worse, a new player enters the game, a blade master who looks like he just walked out of a history book. The newcomer's blade comes down with the force of a guillotine, and for a second, you think this is the end. But the old guard stops the attack, telling the new guy to stand down, and suddenly nothing makes sense anymore. Taeha's bleeding, outnumbered, and his eyes are locked on his cousin, the only target left that matters. The cousin whines about how hard this is, and the old guard basically tells him, "Yeah, no kidding, you're fighting a legend." And the mysterious third player reveals his true colors. He's just a hired gun asking how much the bonus is for taking out the trash. The cousin opens fire, but he might as well be shooting at the wind for all the good it does him. And the new king surveys the scene he created, casually remarking on the chaos like he's critiquing a piece of art. Then the cousin drops the truth bomb. His whole team was handpicked and trained for one purpose, to hunt him. He admits he could have just used a bomb. But where's the fun in that when you need to stage a fight to look like the hero? The talking's done, and now it's just 2 masters of the blade ready to see whose legend is real. And just when you thought it was a duel, the hired gun reminds everyone that this isn't a fair fight, it's an execution. The cousin spells out the plan with a grin. They don't need to win, they just need to make sure he can't walk away. And in that one horrifying moment, Taeha realizes he didn't just walk into a trap, he's the star of the show. His cousin hits him with a condescending, "Good job," because this whole night was just a test, and Taeha was the only one who didn't get the memo. And just like that, he gets a one-way ticket through the nearest window, courtesy of the welcoming committee. We flash back 4 years to find out our perfect killing machine used to be a little extra. His handler is furious, complaining that she asked him to take out a traitor, not redecorate the entire mansion in red. The scene is so over the top, even his hardened superior has to take a Technicolor sick break. She lectures him on the art of subtlety because apparently his early work lacked a certain finesse. And we meet the man who tried to teach him that lesson, his adoptive father in the Salerno family. He was the one who took in a broken boy and tried to turn him into a man, not just a weapon. But his sister's warning from the past echoes in the present. Making enemies is easy, but making them this angry is just bad for business. She's laying down the law. For the family's sake, he needs to learn the meaning of the word subtle. And her one rule for plausible deniability? If you can't be clean, at least be invisible. But when she turns around, she realizes he didn't just ignore the lesson, He failed the class spectacularly. He argues that a quiet end for a traitor is just bad marketing for the family business. Because for him, fear isn't a weapon. It's a story that needs to be told, exaggerated, and spread to everyone who's still breathing. And he delivers the chilling punchline. He does this so he won't have to do it again. She's horrified, realizing his logic is a paradox wrapped in a threat. And for a second, she sees the world through his eyes, a place where loyalty is carved out of fear. She calls him out for talking like a demon while looking like a saint who's never seen a drop of blood. But then she smiles because she knows the truth. The monster he's trying to be will never fit the man he is. But they forgot one tiny detail. You don't throw a hurricane, you just make it angry. And the old guard gets his retirement papers served with a side of shattered pride. The cousin and his assistant can only stare, because their perfect plan just got a one-way ticket to hell. Taeha doesn't just fight back. He turns the old guard into a permanent piece of wall art. The old guard is officially out of the fight, wondering how he got demoted from bodyguard to dartboard. And before the hired gun can even ask for his bonus, Taeha is already delivering his final performance review. He finally realizes their intel wasn't just wrong, it was a death sentence. Because the man they thought was a ghost is showing them his true face, and it's the last thing they'll ever see. The cousin is officially losing it, screaming that this wasn't part of his brilliant, foolproof plan. But just when you think the chaos can't get any crazier, a new player walks in and calls the assistant by name. And the new guy tells the assistant to get the boss out of here, because he's about to go one-on-one with a legend. But Taeha's not letting his real target escape, and he's got a few parting gifts for the welcoming committee. The bodyguard panics, realizing his boss is making a run for it while he's stuck playing goalie. The assistant is already at the escape route, but the screams behind her say the plan is officially going to hell. Taeha's not just fighting them, he's treating them like speed bumps on his way to the finish line. But the cousin peeks out from his hiding spot, completely oblivious to the new player who just entered the game. Taeha is absolutely livid, screaming that the real fight is with him, not the coward running down the hall. And then the new arrival drops a bombshell, greeting him like an old friend in the middle of the chaos. The name hits Taeha like a physical blow, because this isn't just a bodyguard, it's another ghost from his past. He launches himself forward, screaming at the man to move, because his revenge has one target, and this guy is standing in the way. And the new guy pulls out his own set of toys because this party is just getting started. He introduces himself as Baek Junsu, giving Taeha the kind of formal respect you only show an equal right before you try to end them. And it's a clash of titans, a blur of steel and fury that proves these two are in a league of their own. But that old wound finally cashes its check, and for the first time tonight, the monster bleeds. Baek Junsu shatters his blade, declaring the fight over, because he thinks he's just broken the legend. He follows up with a kick that sends Taeha reeling, ready to close the book on this story for good. But as he turns to finish the job, he realizes the rest of the hired help has been permanently retired by someone else. He just stands there, completely baffled, because the man he was fighting is gone and his own men are down. And from the end of the hall, the cousin calls out to his fallen man, telling him the show's over. Because the guy who was just fighting Taeha pops right back up, admitting it was all just a performance. The old guard gives his final order, grab the real target and get ready for the fireworks. And Taeha is left behind, a pawn in a game he didn't even know he was playing. The escape chopper is waiting, because the final act of this betrayal is about to take flight. The cousin confirms the plan. Once they're airborne, they're wiping the entire board clean. He's practically giddy, rushing to get away before the curtain falls on his little stage play. But his right-hand man is all business, trying to get his boss to stop playing to the non-existent crowd. But the new king isn't leaving without a front-row seat to the finale he's been planning his whole life. The chopper lifts off, carrying the snakes away from the nest they just destroyed. He hangs out the door like a conquering hero, ready to watch his past go up in smoke. And with one last look, he curses the home he just inherited, ready to burn it all to the ground. His assistant just drops the truth. For these people, family is just a pretty word for a prison. But Taeha isn't done, screaming from the wreckage that the main event isn't over yet. His cousin just looks down with pity, calling him a tragic hero whose story ends right here. Then he drops a history lesson, reminding everyone that family means slave, and he's the new master. He loosens his tie, promising to burn the old Cheon-gu to the ground and build his own empire from the ashes. And with a single command, the entire fortress becomes a funeral pyre for the old regime. Taeha is left buried in the rubble, a ghost haunted by a revenge that's literally gone up in smoke. But through the ringing in his ears, he hears the chopper. It's not leaving, it's coming back for a final pass. And in that one moment, the fire in his eyes burns brighter than the one trying to consume him. But up in the sky, the new king is already starting a hostile takeover of his own escape plan. He's not just watching the fireworks, he's breathing in the ashes of his own family and calling it refreshing. But you can't burn a ghost, and this one just learned how to fly on pure, unadulterated rage. He's ready to fly off to his new kingdom, completely unaware that his past is literally climbing up to say hello. And just like that, his victory lap is cut short by a very personal, very sharp objection. The new king's first decree is a scream of pure, unadulterated panic. Inside, the loyal crew can only watch as their perfect escape plan gets hijacked mid-air. The cousin finally sees his uninvited guest, who just gave him a permanent limp as a party favor. He asks him if he really thought he could destroy two families and just walk away clean. This isn't a threat anymore. It's a blood-soaked promise screamed into the wind. But his assistant is ready to add her own chapter to this story, and it involves a lot of noise. She's scrambling for a weapon, but she's about to learn this fight is way above her pay grade. The cousin goes full villain, asking Taeha if he forgot who the main character is supposed to be. And then he makes his point with a few loud bangs, screaming that in this story, he's the hero. But you don't bring a gun to a knife fight when the knife can literally parry bullets. Even a legend can't fly, and for a second, it looks like his revenge ends with a long drop. But up in the chopper, they're not celebrating. They're screaming for an ambulance because Taeha left a parting gift. Because he wasn't just falling, he was aiming for the only soft landing in a city of concrete. Okay, maybe soft wasn't the right word, as he uses a rooftop to break his fall. And then a truck, and then the pavement, because gravity is the one enemy he can't outmaneuver. But his crash landing didn't go unnoticed, and a new face just entered the game. He survived explosions and armies, but it looks like gravity just handed him his final notice. But his one-man apocalypse didn't go unnoticed, and a mysterious stranger wonders if he's arrived too late to the party. And then he hears it, a whisper that cuts through the night, and suddenly this isn't a recovery mission, it's a rescue. Because the monster who took down an empire is now just a man in a river, begging for a lifeline. And for the first time, the Phantom isn't asking for revenge. He's asking for help, because his story is far from over.